Matt Hudson with us. And Representative Plakon, would you do the honors of maybe telling a little bit about yourself and introducing
Well, thank you. This is never a place where I thought I would be, standing before a group talking about Alzheimer's. Just never could imagine it. And if I were at an event like this, my now 57-year-old Susie was with me by my side at every one of them, just about. But she can't now because she's in late-stage Alzheimer's. She's a mother of 6, very active in our community. I used to call her the First Lady of District 29. And on Facebook, after one of her hospital stays, they described her as a beacon of God's love. That's pretty much describes my wife Susie, if some of you know her here. But I'm a little bit embarrassed to tell you, before we started down this road, I thought Alzheimer's was that disease where you just forget stuff and then eventually you pass away from it. But I now know it's a whole lot more, like many people know in this room. I'd never heard of agitation. I'd never heard of sundown syndrome. I never imagined that she'd have grand mal seizures. I'd heard of those, but I now know what myoclonic seizures are too. I never thought she'd have head injuries from falls from this, or staples in the back of her head and hospital stays. In one of the hospital stays, pulling the electrodes off of her head. I didn't know about any of that. I never pictured her wandering and being found this was about 6 months ago in one of her neighbor's house doing their dishes. You can laugh at that, it's okay. I didn't know that when Alzheimer's, you could be fully incontinent, and I would be changing my wife's diapers one day. I never knew any of that. I didn't know about a cascading series of doctors and medicines and things I didn't understand. And I never could imagine that my best friend, of 33 years, wouldn't know my name anymore. And that's really in the last year. So I found out it's a whole lot more than just forgetting stuff and passing away. And that's why I think that the efforts of the people here are so important. There's many different spheres, but just bringing awareness to this disease, I think will, as the public becomes more aware of it, I think funding and the political situation even gets better as more and more people understand what we know in this room. Romans 8:28 in the Bible says that God can, I'll paraphrase, that God can take bad things and make good or even beautiful things out of them. So that's what I've been trying to do, and my role in the legislature is to try to honor my wife Susie's legacy and passing legislation and sharing just our story. And she doesn't know it, but she's helping a lot of people. And I think that brings some joy to our family to see that her story is motivating some things. Over the last couple of years, as I walked through the Capitol, it's a normal human interaction to say, how's Susie doing? And it's always a hard question to answer because we know with Alzheimer's, your best day is things stay the same. And some days they get worse. There's rarely a day that it ever gets better. So I got that question one night during session, a guy named Tom Vincent, kind of cranky guy, how's Susie doing? As I'm in the parking garage. And it occurred to me, again, how do you answer that? But it occurred to me, and I got a little choked up thinking about it, that because of people here, and I was at the National Alzheimer's Convention, and the awareness, and some of the things on the Ed Ethel Moore that Representative Hudson's going to talk about, and research, and all this, that one day there's going to be a legislator going through the Capitol whose spouse or loved one is suffering from Alzheimer's disease, and they're going to be asked the question, how is so-and-so doing? And they'll be able to look back at the person asking and say, thank you for asking. She's getting better, he's getting better. And I think with all the things that are happening here and around the country, we will meet the first survivor one day. It's going to be too late for Susie, I know that. But I think the legacy of loved ones in here and what you're doing will go a long way to meeting the first survivor. Now, it's my honor to introduce Representative and former Speaker Pro Tem Matt Hudson. We served together for a number of years in the Florida House. He was the Speaker Pro Tem from 2014 to 2016. That's kind of like the Vice Speaker, the number 2 guy. In the last 6 years, he served as the for 6 years, he served as Healthcare Appropriations Chairman with a approximately $34 billion budget, which I think is the largest of all the different budget. The budget's 87 billion this year, and 34 of it is healthcare, that he managed that budget. He championed a lot of senior issues and other things, but Alzheimer's has always been his passion, and he'll share why. In 2014, he passed House Bill 709, creating the Ed and Ethel Moore Alzheimer's Research Fund, which we spoke about today. He's married, has 2 adult children, 2 grandchildren. He's current vice president of Hope Healthcare, where he carries on that passion for serving for seniors. Incidentally, we were roommates in our first term. That didn't last long, though. But you know, of all these accomplishments, things he's done, there's one that stands out in my mind. He served for 9 years, and we have something called sine die. The House and Senate meet together between the two, and they drop the handkerchief. And it's filled with people, and then all of a sudden, people start to dissipate and go home as the 60-day session's over. So there was an Alzheimer's patient that was loose in the Capitol, that the family was trying to find the patient for probably 15 minutes. And you know, anybody who dealt with that, the fear of losing a loved one and where they are. You know, the family was panicked, and it was like the sister got off the elevator, and the elevator closed, and it was gone for a while. So, you know, of all the things that I remember about Matt Hudson, his final act, he was on the House floor alone, and this patient wandered into the House floor. It was Speaker Pro Tem Hudson and a wandering Alzheimer's patient, and he called the family, my family, and returned Caesar to us. That's what I remember about Matt Hudson.
Well, it's not often you get an introduction like that. And there are absolutely no words for me to say thank you, other than to say thank you. It was my honor. So here we are today, and it's an amazing circle for me. Because I got into the legislature because I wanted to do good things for my community, for my state. And then I got put into the healthcare track. And I thought, all right, this is pretty great. And I was a caregiver for my grandparents. My grandparents are Ed and Ethel Moore. So I thought, well, what can I do? What can I do to make a difference?